Hello again, though if you are new with Decanting Club, welcome. This month's white is a Gewürztraminer from the Alto Adige or Südtirol, Italy's most northern and probably most scenic wine region, where the vineyards cling to the steep valley sides surrounded by the snow-capped Dolomites. It looks more like Switzerland or Austria up there than Italy, and indeed it used to be Austrian till about a century ago, and the locals still speak German as their first language. This wine comes from Cantina Tramin, the much awarded growers cooperative in the village of Tramin. Now, Gewürztraminer is just an especially aromatic mutation of Traminer. Gewürz means spicy. And quite logically, the winemakers of Tramin claim that Traminer is their grape, born in their village. Sadly, most experts disagree, and you can read all about that debate on the website. But there's certainly an awful lot of Gewürztraminer grown around Tramin today, and most of it ends up in this wine. It's a fairly deep colour for a 2-year-old, a lovely medium greeny gold, but this is actually quite pale for Gewürz, which has thick pink skins and so generally produces quite deeply coloured wine. Perfect. Classic Gewürz. Oh, and by the way, if this nose doesn't jump out of the glass and hit you over the head, the wine is too cold. This wine is incredibly temperature sensitive, much more than most, and if you have it too cold, it just doesn't smell of anything. So give it time out of the fridge to warm up. It helps, by the way, if you pour our new super-sized pouches into 2 separate glasses. A, they warm quicker, and B, you've got much more room to swirl and sniff. Classic textbook Gewürz scents here, lychees and rose petals. Brilliant. There are other tropical fruits here too. There's mango, and then there's a big waft of pungent ginger spice. You can feel it in your sinuses. There's also something that's simultaneously nutty and sweet, even honeyed, like baklava, those flaky pastries with the pistachio and honey in. Beautiful. Now that's unexpectedly dry, given the sweetness of the nose. It's also more refreshing than I was expecting too. Acidity here is no more than medium, but that's really good for this grape, and it at first helps to disguise the wine's weight. But then it spreads out across your palate and reveals its concentration and power. Hold it in your mouth for a bit and to see the effect. There it goes. This is most decidedly full-bodied. And that there's an oily weight to these concentrated tropical fruit flavours of cantaloupe, melon and lychee. That backloaded intensity builds into the finish. Big finish. It's long, slightly oily again, but it's got this super, ever-increasing spiciness that just grows after you've swallowed the wine. There's a little touch of bitterness on the finish, which is quite normal for this grape, but it's nicely offset by perhaps a smidge of sweetness, suggesting that perhaps this wine isn't quite as dry as we thought it was at first. Textbook Gewürz. Absolutely classic. The French have a great word for this. They call it typicité, which sounds so much better than does what it says on the tin. It's actually really hard to make a classic Gewürz, especially a dry one. You need exactly the right climate. This is one of only a handful of places in the world that has it. You have to pick it exactly the right moment, and you've got to be very careful in the winery. But this one hits the sweet spot. It's got intense Gewürz character, sufficient freshness, and the grape's tendency to oiliness and bitterness have been controlled enough that you don't have to make the wine sweet to disguise them. Hats off. If Tramin isn't the original true home of Gewürztraminer, It's certainly its second home. Cheers!